morning, Hurricane Dorian is rapidly intensifying as it takes aim at Florida. It's forecast to become a huge, very powerful hurricane before making landfall, with winds of 130 miles per hour or stronger. CNN meteorologist Chad Myers is back with us. Chad, I want you to tell us where at this point we think this storm is headed. I know we're dealing with 500 miles here, but the models have come into greater agreement.
They absolutely have, John. We are somewhere now plus or minus 100 miles from where the center of the line would be to the outside of the cone here to the outside of the cone here. So now, because the storm is getting closer, the models get better and the cone gets smaller and smaller. By the time that gets there, our cone would even be smaller. Of course, that's just how it works. This is going to come on shore as a 140 mile per hour storm. Now, don't get technical about 134 to 144 or whatever it might be. This is just where we think the middle will be. As it comes on shore, it'll lose a little steam, but that's because it's on shore at 130. So really, landfall will be somewhere in that category for hurricane. Consequences will be significant. Destruction will be catastrophic. It will be time to get out of that area as soon as we know what that area is. And then it begins to slow down, and in 24 hours, it doesn't even make it to Orlando. So now this thing still could. This thing still could, John, because of the cone and the way it works. We could still be all the way offshore and miss, or go all the way across the state and again be on the other side into the Gulf of Mexico. You can see where the cone still is. It's because at Orlando, that number one over that area, that is still 5 days away. 5 days to watch this thing lumber across a very warm atmosphere. I don't see an eye this morning, and that's good. If you don't see the eye, that means the storm isn't getting bigger. It isn't getting deeper. It isn't getting stronger. But as you mentioned, talking about the models, they are all in agreement now, southern half of Florida for landfall and then turning to the right. Now, will the turn be slightly earlier or later? That's still to be seen. That's still 70 hours away. But the models came into agreement overnight, finally, because they have been dichotomous. We've been West Palm for European and American models. Just the timing's about 6 hours different on landfall. That's pretty much irrelevant at this point. But why did that happen? Because there was a Gulf Stream G4 in the atmosphere yesterday before the models ran. That Gulf Stream flew out of Tampa, came down through, sampled the entire atmosphere around the storm, and then went back home. Now, it wasn't through the middle. It did not go through the core. What it did in its path was drop these little parachutes onto the surface of the ocean from 40,000 or 50,000 feet up. So this is like a weather balloon that goes up, but it just goes down. So now we have weather balloon data, essentially, all the way through the atmosphere here. And they put that into the models, and the model said, thank you very much. Here is your answer. And that's where we are right now.
And just to be clear, and I know, Chad, that the entire peninsula needs to be on alert and all the way up to Georgia. But when we talk about the southern shift of the forecast, that's a big deal. Because as it drifts further south, you're dealing with the major population centers of the state. Correct?
No question. Absolutely no question. Miami-Dade, Broward, all of a sudden, you've now increased the population from, let's say, Juno Beach to now millions and tens of millions of people in the way. And it's a lot like when Andrew was heading toward Miami, but then ended up hitting Homestead. Homestead was destroyed, but could you imagine what would have happened to downtown Miami if that was a little bit farther to the north? This is what we're talking about. And as the models start to shift farther and farther south, do they continue that? Do they continue that southern shift? Or do they finally just say, no, this is our answer, this is where it's going to go? Doesn't matter. There's going to be 10 to 20 inches of rainfall. There's going to be trees down. There's going to be destruction all over Florida. You need to pay attention to this. This is a big deal.
Yeah, big deal. Plenty of uncertainty, but those preparations need making nonetheless. Chad, we'll be back with you later. Thank you for that. All right, coming up, a big development in Iowa overnight that could put the state's first in the nation status into question. All the details next.